What's up, gamers? DreamcastGuy here, talking today about the Game Awards, because I just finished watching it. It was long as heck, and to be honest, it was surprisingly entertaining. The last couple Game Awards have just been kind of packed full of commercials or big game reveals that didn't particularly strike my interest. But this year, they finally got it right. I mean, it still had a lot of commercials, but at least they were gaming focused, and the awards themselves seemed to celebrate the gamers. But let's talk about everything, the good and the bad. So please like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. I'm wearing a demonic cloak because I sold my soul to the devil to have enough energy to film this video. I am terribly, terribly sick, but let's just get into the funny stuff. To start with, let's just discuss the fact that when it comes to Elden Ring and God of War Ragnarok, these things freaking swept. In fact, God of War Ragnarok won Best Narrative, Best Video Game Actor for Chris Judge playing Kratos, and then when Kratos got up to the mic, he gave an 8-minute speech. It was so long, people in the stands were literally like, what the heck is happening? He was talking about his parents, his childhood, how he met Cory Balrog to make the first game. Completely insane rambling. Then God of War Ragnarok won Best Soundtrack, Best Accessibility, and Best Action Game. In my opinion, very, very well earned. I loved God of War Ragnarok a lot, whereas Elden Ring won Best Art, Best Role-Playing Game, even above more standard, typical role-playing games like Xenoblade, and it also won Best Game Direction, which is kind of a more vague, ambiguous thing, but the best of all, it won Game of the Year. Now, Miyazaki's speech, the director of the game, very, very interesting, very humble. The guy himself, very much, clearly, he loves making games. He loves that all of us are big fans of Elden Ring. But on top of that, you can tell that he's the kind of guy who's never satisfied. He straight up even said in his speech, maybe this is inappropriate, but I'm already thinking of new video game ideas. That's really cool that on the stage, he's like, I'm glad you guys like Elden Ring, but I'm going to do different stuff next. But what's really crazy is after he gave his speech, a little kid snuck on stage and said something like, I dedicate Elden Ring to Bill Clinton, and security rushed the stage. What the heck? Has this ever happened before? I mean, never at any video game award ceremony have I seen somebody just straight up prank somebody, like a troll got on stage. That is hilarious. Now, there's one other award that I specifically want to talk about, which is the fan vote. And then we're going to talk about all the big reveals. So for the week leading up to this, fans were able to vote for what they determined as like the player's choice, the game that just random people, you and I, think is the best of the best of the best. And the main ones that people seem to be pushing for was Sonic Frontiers, because it was being elected for no awards, not even best soundtrack, even though it definitely deserved it. And the other one was Genshin Impact. Now, these were neck and neck for days. And today, Geoff Keighley, the host of the Game Awards, took the stage and said, hey, we've removed all the bot votes and Genshin Impact wins. Personally, I do wish that Sonic Frontier had won that. I think that Sonic Frontiers, I mean, it's a game that has a lot of problems. I'm fully willing to admit that. But it's the best Sonic game we've had in years, and the fan community is very, very passionate. I think when it comes to a player choice award, it's definitely something that deserves that. But let's talk about some of the games that were shown today that really struck my eye. First off, Hades 2. I'm kind of shocked. Hades 2 is coming to early access next year. Supergiant Games, the original Hades is actually the first, what do they call those, roguelikes? That was the first roguelike I ever played, and it got me super addicted to the genre. The original Hades, completely a 10 out of 10. I think it might be one of the most beautiful games I've ever played, purely from like a hand-drawn aesthetic. Glad it's getting a sequel. I'm super on board. Normally, I don't play early access games. I'm definitely going to play that. We saw a bunch of good indie games. Stuff like Replaced was shown again. This is like a 2D cyberpunk action game. The developers have actually been dealing with a bunch of stuff with the war going on in the world, so I'm happy to see that that game is actually still being worked on. Dead Cells is getting a crossover with freaking Castlevania. They're calling it the Return to Castlevania DLC. That looks fantastic. But here's the thing that actually kind of struck me the most is some of these weirder projects like Judas. This is a new game being created by the original mastermind of BioShock, Ken Levine. The motto of the game apparently is "Fix what you broke." Honestly, the trailer is so freaking hardcore BioShock. Like the vibe, the animations of the hands, the mix of magic and firepower. Judas already completely has my attention. Now, I'm sorry, I'm so dang sick. We got another look at Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League. These pre-rendered CG trailers they keep having for the game, they're not particularly gripping me. They're not, like these pre-rendered cutscenes, as good as they are to look at, they don't really display what the game is going to be. Is it a shooter? Is it a card game? Like, we really don't know. But I will give this one a lot of slack because the end of this trailer had Batman showing up, and it appears to be the final role by Kevin Conroy, the original famous actor of Batman. Apparently, he got a chance to finish his work on this game before, unfortunately, he passed away. So it's cool that we are going to get a chance to fight and battle against evil Batman in this game, because he certainly looks very, very evil. We got another very deep look at Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Oh boy. I keep saying this. I'm not really a Star Wars fan, just in general. I think Star Wars as a universe is good. I'm not saying it's bad, but just personally, something about force powers and light versus dark. I never got super into the Star Wars stuff, but Jedi Survivor looks so incredibly good, and I definitely like the last one as well. I mean, this new era of Dark Soulsy style Jedi games, I'm super, super on board with that. But speaking of Dark Souls, we have to talk about the newest From Software project. They revealed Armored Core 6. Now, some of you young bloods may not know this, but originally what first got From Software on the map was not their Dark Souls styles projects, it was actually Armored Core. Big, very technical mech games. They're not just fun, they have very cool stories, very beautiful universes. The next one looks extra freaking messed up. It looks like a post-apocalyptic mech game where some sort of cataclysmic like solar flare scorched the surface of the earth and now everybody's just battling over the ashes. I think that's incredibly freaking cool. Next up though, I do want to talk about Death Stranding 2. The entirety of this event didn't feel like it had that many big AAA announcements, at least in my mind. It felt like it was a good mix of like DLC and indie stuff and awards, and I think all that was good. But when it comes to like big, huge showstopper, world exclusive premieres, I think one of the few was definitely Death Stranding. Death Stranding 2 actually looks so much closer to Metal Gear. There was even a big mecha in it at one point that straight up looked like something that could be rivaling the Shagohod. Very, very, very cool. Whatever Death Stranding 2, Hideo Kojima came to stage and was very vague about the details of it, but whatever the heck this turns into, I am super, super, super on board for it. I mean, I liked Death Stranding 1. Death Stranding 2 looks like it's going to be a million times better. We also saw some gameplay for Tekken 8. They're being, again, slightly loosey-goosey with the release date. I think Tekken 8 is very deep into development. I bet it's probably, getting close to beta phase, but they're probably being vague so that they don't step on the toes of Street Fighter, because the hype for Street Fighter 6 right now is completely insane. I don't think they want to compete with that. We also saw Street Fighter 6, and it looks great, and it got a release date, which I forgot to write down because honestly I was freaking out. No, June 2nd. June 2nd for Street Fighter 6. I'm super on board for that. Oh yeah. Okay, I'm not going to talk about most of the DLC they showed because it didn't really particularly strike my eye, except for the Horizon Forbidden West DLC, which is only going to be on next gen, which is going to be called, it's Burning Shores. It takes place in LA. You're even going to be able to go to the Hollywood sign. It looks really cool to be in the Los Angeles Valley, so deep into the monster-filled wilds. I mean, I'm super, super on board for that. That looks so cool. I loved Horizon Forbidden West. I'm super excited for downloadable content just to see, honestly, where they're going to take the story after that very strange ending of the main game. Oh yeah, there was another piece of DLC that's definitely worth mentioning, which is Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty, which apparently this looks like it's going to be another very high budget, Very big, very badass expansion, and it's going to star Idris Elba. And again, this is going to be next gen only. I kind of wonder if CD Projekt Red has kind of figured out, like, all right, you know what? We kind of messed things up by trying to do the cross-gen previous PS4, Xbox, VCR stuff. We got to focus on the more power to make a bigger, better project. Phantom Liberty being next gen only, I think was a very, very good choice. Next up, we did see a bunch of very cool stuff. Crash Team Rumble. They're making a multiplayer Crash Bandicoot game. There was a game, Space Marine 2. I'm kind of getting into Warhammer 20k, so it's cool that that's actually showing up. Forspoken got a random demo. In fact, I'm installing it on my PlayStation 5 right now. There was a bunch of tinier teasers that were mixed in here that kind of kept the pace up. That felt like there were no duds. I guess that's kind of what impressed me most about the Game Awards this year, is that even when it was going slow, even when the pace was kind of more timid, every game looked good. Every single game they showed, there was like nothing in here that straight up was just blah. There was games that weren't for me, but every game they showed was much better curated. Now, the final thing they really closed out with, and I'm glad they did, was a in-depth Final Fantasy 16 trailer. It was called Revenge. Now, we have a release date for Final Fantasy 16, which is going to be June 22nd. Summer is going to be incredibly packed. I'm so excited. Honestly, the more we see of FF16, the more this looks like the best freaking game ever. I'm extremely excited for freaking Final Fantasy 16. I'm the biggest Final Fantasy 16 simp on the planet, or any Final Fantasy. But this one looks so much more based in reality, not just with the hyper-realistic graphics, but a lot of the stuff here. The fact that they hired a lot of the combat people from stuff like Devil May Cry, this game looks like it's going to be much more visceral, much more bombastic, much more brutal, and I'm definitely ready for that. They did show some other stuff like the Mario clips from the Mario movie, which I guess I'm not really super into, but oh man, all right, I'll be honest, my throat is closing up and I can't talk anymore, but I'm looking at my notes. They showed a lot of really good games here. Atomic Heart Post-Trauma, a lot of this stuff looks very, very good. I'm excited for it. Lords of the Fallen, I had a very good time watching the Game Awards. I hope you guys had a good time too. If you could please give this video a like, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already, and please keep dreaming. I would give it a B. I would give it a solid B or a B+.
Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.